An in-depth study of the book of Psalms shows us that our relating and connecting with God is rarely a one-dimensional experience. I'll refer back to Sky Jethani's illustration from his book, What If Jesus Was Serious, that shows us while consumer Christianity deals only with the happy, feel-good emotions of life, the Psalms has a way of giving a more accurate depiction of what we actually experience, the tension of anger and joy, of panic and trust, of fear and happiness, the messy, confusing, and often complicated emotions that the authors of the different chapters of the book of Psalms were willing and able to bring and surrender before God. Psalm 27 is a good example of the depiction of this kind of tension. Here it is a psalm that was written by King David. Bible scholars who have studied this chapter would go as far as to say that this chapter was written by two different people. Why would they say that? Because for them, they feel that no person could switch so suddenly from faith to fear, from trust to trembling, from courage to cowardice, so easily and so suddenly. However, we only have to look at our own hearts to see that this is not only possible, but it happens all the time. The tension of faith and fear at war inside you and I. Our lives are often filled with exactly the tension that is expressed here, a tension that is so powerful that we feel divided. There are moments where we are so confident about God's power. We are so confident about God's love. We are so confident about God's grace that we are bold and courageous in our prayers and asking God to deliver us. And we trust and we believe that God will deliver us. But we cannot deny there are also moments where we are so overwhelmed with darkness and fear that we feel that God has abandoned us. In Psalm 27, here we see that it is in that very tension that our God is all the more present. He is there amidst that tension. Verse 1, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked advance against me to devour me, it is my enemies and my foes who will stumble and fall. Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. The war break out against me, even then I will be confident. In other chapters of the book of Psalms, the author would often begin with the challenges that are facing them. But here you see David begins with a confident declaration of his faith. He begins not with his concerns, but he begins with God. Now, for a lot of us, baliktad po. We begin, or rather we do things the other way around. Instead of beginning with praise, we begin with our petitions. Instead of beginning with God, we begin with ourselves. And perhaps this is a reminder for you and I, the importance of remembering who God is first and foremost. It is not said merely that the Lord gives light, but rather God is light. It does not just say God gives salvation, but rather God is our salvation. It does not only say that God will help us find refuge and safety, but rather God is our refuge and safety. We do not ask him to give us these things as if they are independent and separate of who God is, but rather these are descriptions, character traits of the very nature of God. And David begins with this, that in the presence of our God, who is our light, who is our salvation, who is our safety and refuge, there is nothing that compares to that truth. Verse 4, one thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. If you have ever wondered what is the source of the confidence of our heroes of the faith, here you see the secret behind David's confidence is in his communion with God. If you were to look and interpret and to judge this desire of David, it seems out of place and impractical. And yet this is what David pursues at a time where he feels that everything is falling apart. In the midst of others pursuing David, David pursues God. This one thing this idea of unity, this idea of everything in your life converging towards one love, one passion, one hope, one pursuit. We see this immense power and strength in focus and single-mindedness. David asks not something from God, he doesn't ask something of God, but here he asks to be with God, to be one with God. We ask a great many things of God, of ourselves, of others, and of life, but really there is just one thing that matters. And to gain everything else and yet to miss out on that one thing is to miss out on the most important. So many things have our attention, so many things captivate our interest. But yeah, for David, his greatest joy, his greatest good was the presence of God. Amidst the absence of safety, the presence of danger, the presence of enemies, the absence of resources, David's one thing was the presence of God. And so that is our question. What is the one thing I ask of the Lord more than any other? David talks about gazing on the beauty of the Lord. The act of gazing on something is not a one-time glimpse, but a sustained focus on that which you are gazing upon. And it was not merely to see the Lord, but to see and to gaze on the beauty of the Lord. And alam po natin yan, the experience of gazing on the beauty of something, it captivates your attention. The other things that are competing for your attention, you're able to put those things to the side. You gaze on the beauty of it. You fill your mind with it. You taste it. You rest in it. You feel that you must have it. And yet, this is something that we do with everything else other than God. To gaze upon the beauty of the Lord is to praise, admire, and enjoy God for who He is. To enter into that realm of tasting and seeing that the Lord is good. Because when you gaze intently upon something, that very act of gazing upon something has the power to change and transform you. David found God not just useful, but beautiful. And so when facing life's trials, glance at the problem, but gaze at God. Glance at the problem, but gaze at God. He ends with this: I remain confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. David comes full circle, once again restating his confidence in God. It is good to note that here it also ends with a command to wait. That perhaps in the face of difficulty, what God is asking of us is not so much the need to be strong as it is more of a greater need to be still. Hudson Taylor, at the end of his life, wrote to a dear friend, I am so weak, I cannot write. I cannot read my Bible. I cannot even pray. I can only lie still in God's arms like a little child and trust. Now, to be patient is not about passively waiting, but actively trusting. Lisa Turkhurst, when anxiety strikes, I pause and remember Lamentations 3. The Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for him. I can feel out of control, but not act out of control because I remember my God, he is in control. He is my portion, and I will wait for him. Let that be your prayer for today. Lord, make me a person of one thing. Make us a people of one thing, of one pursuit, of one all-consuming passion for you, a desire to seek you, to gaze upon the beauty of who you are.